Hare Krishna, welcome to the Bhagavad Gita class. And today is Vaman Dwadashi, which is the appearance of Vamanadev. Those who are following the Saturday Srimad Bhagavatam series, we are covering the appearance or the whole pastime or Leela of Vamanadev and Bali Maharaj, his great devotee. And today is the appearance day of Bali Maharaj. So tomorrow we will talk about the appearance of Bali Maharaj. Just announcement for those who are following the Srimad Bhagavatam series that we do on Saturdays. Uh, with that, let us start the Mangalacharan prayers. Let me share my screen and we will get started with the Mangalacharan prayers. This is our Veda base, going to Bhagavad Gita as it is, introduction, and these are the prayers in the beginning of the introduction. So we will start with prayers to Srila Prabhupada and then to the various acharyas. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutah Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, great, thank you. So, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. Very, very, very interesting discussions coming up today in the Bhagavad Gita. So, let me start without wasting or spending any more time. So again, let me share my screen. We will do our usual whiteboarding. Okay. All right. So we are on, okay, I need to share. We are on chapter 2 and we are in section, oops. Section 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, and specifically we are in the B part of the section 4 of Bhagavad Gita. This is section 4 overall is verse numbers 40 to 53. Last time we covered 40 to 46, and we will begin with 47 and we will go up to 53. And if time permits, we will go beyond 53 as well. So this is section A and this is section B, and this is the one which we are going to do today. And this is a core section of the second chapter, a very, very core section of the second chapter here. And this core section is on Nishkama Karma Yoga. And it is very, very important to understand this. This will have a very strong bearing on the understanding of the rest of the chapter. And Nishkama Karma Yoga is also called Buddhi Yoga. And the reason is because one needs to apply his intelligence or buddhi to realize that this Nishkama Karma Yoga is the one where we get true happiness. So I just sent a WhatsApp message saying that today we will be going into the great details of, or deep details of Nishkama Karma Yoga and what is the meaning of true happiness. And when we do any work with Nishkama Karma Yoga, or in the Nishkama Yoga sense, when we do karma, by applying our intelligence, which is why it is also called Buddhi Yoga, or by applying our intelligence, Buddhi, then we get supreme joy. Lord Krishna says, karma kaushalam. Kaushal means like the most, in our zone, it's like a Zen kind of a situation of doing work when we get extreme happiness. So we will cover these aspects. So that was sort of the introduction, and that was the WhatsApp message I sent out. Now, one thing before we go in, to understand this Nishkama Karma Yoga, Lord Krishna is explaining the various stages of yoga. Yoga stages, or the yoga ladder, as some devotees call it, in an increasing order, with Nishkama Karma Yoga as sort of the starting point. Of course, there is, of course, there is Sakama Karma Yoga. Before that, there is Karma Kanda. So Karma Kanda to Sakama Karma Yoga to Nishkama Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga. We can write with a G or a J. Jnana Yoga, then Dhyana Yoga, and then Bhakti Yoga. So the thing to understand is Lord Krishna is explaining this in sequential order, going from one end to the other. And we are on this stage right now, Nishkama Karma Yoga. And the message that I want to give is that Nishkama Karma Yoga, which we will deal with today very deeply in this class, is not the final message of Bhagavad Gita. The final message of Bhagavad Gita is Bhakti Yoga. Nishkama Karma Yoga is not the final message. Not. Otherwise, if it was the case, then Bhagavad Gita would have ended in chapter 2. Why are there 18 chapters? And Nishkama Karma Yoga is being explained in full glory in second chapter. There is not much more in Nishkama Karma Yoga to be explained other than more deeper details, but the concept is fully being explained in chapter 2. So if that was the final message, then it could have ended right here, or maybe in chapter 4, or absolutely chapter 5, definitely it would have ended. Because there in chapter 5, Lord Krishna is giving a holistic understanding, let me change the color, of Nishkama Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Okay, so this is in chapter 2, Jnana Yoga is in chapter 4, and the integrated understanding, so I will draw it like this, is in chapter 5. So chapter 5 is sort of merging the concept of Jnana and Karma Yoga. But none of that is the final message of Bhagavad Gita. But the understanding of Nishkama Karma Yoga is very important even for Bhakti Yoga, because we must understand how to apply Nishkama Karma Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. Nishkama Karma Yoga, with a very small change, can become Bhakti Yoga. So it is important to understand it. It is important to begin applying it, because like a ladder, it is truly a ladder like this. Your goal is to reach at the top. That is the goal. But you have to physically stand on the first step and then go to the next step. You cannot say that my goal is the 10th step. Why do I need to stand physically on the first one? Because then you will never get there. Therefore, application of Nishkama Karma Yoga in the beginning is very important. So I do not want to underestimate the importance of Nishkama Karma Yoga. But at the same time, I want to convey that this is not the final message. This is not, the ladder does not end here. The ladder extends all the way to the top. That is the point. Okay. So I wanted to very quickly explain or show sort of the overall sequence of where we are, so that you get a much better sort of an understanding of some things. So very quickly, verse numbers 31 to 38, there is no sort of a yoga here. There is only karma kanda, KK, karma kanda. Karma kanda, just to revise once again, is doing your duties in a legal way. That's it. Just dharma, artha, kama, dharma, artha, kama. Do your duties and you reap the rewards. That is where Lord Krishna was saying you must fight. You must achieve success. You must basically, you must care for victory. You must care for honor. You must care for happiness. Then from 40 to 72 starts the yoga. Yoga basically means some kind of connection with the Supreme, some kind of connection. Here, there is no yoga in the Karma Kanda. You just do your duty. You are the cause of the results. You work hard, you will get the reward. That is the understanding. Not that it happens all the time, but that is the hope. So that is Karma Kanda. But if you do it in a perfectly legal way, everything, and you do it enough times, you will, begin to get rewards at least some of the times. Yoga is connection, some kind of connection with something that is beyond ourselves. We are not the only cause. In Karma Kanda, we are the cause. Yoga means mute. And also kindly change your name to the real name. So if there are any names like iPhone, iPad, or even just your first name like Amit or Rahul, please make it your full name so we can understand who has joined. So yoga means some kind of connection to some superior authority. That is yoga. And in yoga, we talked about two things. One is Sakama Karma Yoga, which is 42 to 46. I have left the space for 40 and 41. I will cover that. 42 to 46 is Sakama Karma Yoga, where Lord Krishna was talking about performing our duties through the Vedas, performing various sacrifices, performing various activities of how to be successful by invoking some superior powers. That is Sakama Karma Yoga, where we are going beyond ourselves. We realize we need some external help, and we obtain that help through the Vedic rituals, the Vedic sacrifices. And here comes the concept of the Devis and Devatas. We had discussed all of this last time, so you can review those lectures. But you are taking the help of the Devis and Devatas, and with their help, you are making progress. So you are connecting with somebody superior to you, which is the Devis, Devatas. That whole concept was covered in the Vedas, and Lord Krishna was still saying that is also, you must go beyond that. Don't get attached to the Vedas, because ultimately there is Sakama. See, kindly mute yourself, okay? Otherwise, I will take the permission away for unmuting. Please consider it a privilege that you can speak up and say something when you want to say something. It's a privilege, okay? So don't, yeah, I hate to take away the privilege. I want that privilege to be in your hands. So, okay, so that was Sakama Karma Yoga. I forget where I was. Number 40, Lord Krishna is saying you must follow this path. Neha Bhikrama Nasho Asti. That on this path, there is no loss, there is no nash. You will not suffer any loss, there is only gain. And the focus of verse number 41 was focus itself. That you must focus on this path, on the spiritual path. Life is too short to focus on anything else. Therefore, one must focus on the spiritual path. And if at all you still are attracted to sense enjoyment, at least start with Sakama Karma Yoga. But the message is to go beyond Sakama Karma Yoga. So that is where we start. 47 to 53 is the next section. And that section is Nishkama Karma Yoga. And within this section, we will break it up into two parts, 47 to 49 and 50 to 53. 47 to 49 is going to explain the core concept of Nishkama Karma Yoga. And 50 to 53 will describe benefits of Nishkama Karma Yoga. Okay, you're all with me? So now let us see what are the what is the core concept of Nishkama Karma Yoga. So we will start from here, 47 to 49 and 50 to 53 is where we will go. So 2.47. And within these three verses, 47, 48, and 49, 47th verse is describing the most core concept of Nishkama Karma Yoga. And this is our very, very famous verse, arguably the most famous verse that people know, at least. This is not the most important verse, but it is the most popular verse of Bhagavad Gita. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhu mate sangostva karmani. So this verse is very important because it is explaining the core concept of Nishkama Karma Yoga. So what is the core concept of Nishkama Karma Yoga? It is broken down into 4 parts, this verse. So every verse is broken down into 4 parts. Every single verse of Bhagavad Gita has 4 quartlets, A, B, C, D, like we call it. So the first, and in the Bhagavad Gita as it is, you can see that it is kind of broken down into 4 parts. So we call it A, B, C, and D. There are 4 parts in this verse. Karmani eva adhikarah ste. So adhikar, you know the word adhikar. Adhikar means right. I have the right. So karmani eva adhikaraste. Te means you. You have the right to do your duty. Okay. So what it means is, and the word, what is this? And the word right becomes more evident when we talk about number B. So number A says you have the right to do the duty. You have the right. Adhikar. Adhikar to do your duty. In other words, you must do your duty. You can say you must or you should, whatever that is. Okay. B says that, but ma phaleshu kadachana. Kadachana means that never. But never on the phala. Now here the word right the adhikar becomes more important here in B. You have no adhikar ever on the phala. The phala, you can use it, that's fine, but without adhikar. You don't have the right. It can be taken away from you. It's like a benefit. It's like a privilege. Like we said, muting, unmuting. It's like a privilege. It can be taken away anytime. You cannot say, I have the right to unmute. No, I am the class teacher. I get to say who gets to mute and unmute. You do not have the adhikar. If you behave properly, you can do it. If not, it can be taken away from you. So you do not have the right. In the same way, you must do your duty. Whether you get the result or not is not up to you. Or even if you get it, for some time, it can be taken away. So you have no right on the results. That is what is being said. But so you have the right to do your duty, but never kadachana on the phala or results. You never have a right, adhikar, on the results. Number C is saying that ma karma phala hetur bhu. Very important to understand. Now, number C is the key, is the clue to the rest of the verse. So I will put this in red color. C is the clue, or is the key to understanding all of this verse, which says ma karma phala hetu, which means never consider yourself. Hetu means cause. We have discussed this, I think, in previous classes. Hetu, you are doing something for hetu, for some cause. Is karan hetu ye hua, which means this was the cause because of which something happened. So hetu, the word hetu means cause. So ma karma phala hetur bhu. You must never consider yourself to be the hetu of karma. Never. So ma means you must never. So never think that you are the, I will say, only cause, or in other words, I can say, I'm purposely cutting out here, the full cause of the phala. Phala means results. Never consider that you are the full cause. Maine kiya, and I am the only one who did it. We all think like that, especially in case of our success. I did it, so I was successful. But if we fail, it is somebody else's problem. He did that, so I failed. He did that, so I failed. There, we are very willing to share the cause with others. But in success, more or less, we are very willing to gobble up all the being the cause. So that is also not correct. I'm just trying to make you understand how to realize that everything, success or failure, both, we are not the cause. So we must never consider, please mute, we must never consider ourselves to be the cause of the results. And the way to understand this is that can't seem to mute this person. So where was I?
Could never consider yourself as the only cause, Prabhu.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I need to take care of something. Okay, can you hear me? Somebody say thumbs up. Okay, thank you. So cause. So cause. So we are not the cause. Yes. So we must consider how much we are not the cause of our rewards or of our phala. Hmm. So many things are not in our control. So many things. And we must absolutely understand that whenever what we are the cause of, 100% cause. So I will say we are 100% cause of desiring or hoping, I will say, that so and so thing happens. So we can desire, I wish this happens, I wish that happens. That's a desire or a hope. But to actually convert it into reality is not exclusively in our hands. Of course, some of it is in our hands, but not exclusively. There are so many examples, so many. Every day in our life, there are examples where we want certain things to happen. Many a times, I have this problem of getting migraine frequently. Sometimes, I say, okay, I have cleared out, I have finished everything in my work, whatever I have to do by Friday, and my Saturday is going to be perfect. I will, sleep on time. I want to get up on time, have a good 8 hours of sleep so that my day starts fresh. Everything I have planned out nicely to spend a good Saturday reading a book or whatever I want to do. And then on Saturday morning, I get up with a migraine for for no reason. Maybe my sleep posture was bad, maybe whatever went wrong. I am like, oh my God, I did everything. This has happened to me so many times. I did everything to take care to make sure I have a perfect Saturday, and the plans get ruined. And please look in your life, how many times we desire certain things to go a certain way, and then something happens. You want to sit down and maybe, watch a movie, and then the internet goes down. You want to watch on Netflix or whatever. Just something goes like then you think like, this was the only time when this was supposed to happen. My God, why did this have to happen now? These are some simple examples I'm giving, and then there are very much more severe examples as well. People die or get hurt, or their feelings get badly hurt, and so many other things don't go according to our plan. The reason is because we are not the only cause of the results. The results don't manifest. And the final verse or the final quartlet is Mate Sangostva Akarmani. What that means is that there should be, you should never give up the attachment to akarma, which means never be attached to not doing your duty. It's a double negative there. Never be attached to akarma, which means not doing your duty. I will convert it into two double negatives, make it a positive, right? So I will just put it in a simple way, and I will convert this to black color. Never be attached to a karma or not being doing your duty means always be attached to doing the duty. So always be attached to doing your duty. Okay. So what that means is that basically this whole verse can be summarized in two. There are two key concepts. Two key concepts in this verse. Concept number A, or yeah, I will say capital A, is act without attachment to results or phala. And concept number B is act with attachment to duty. Okay. So there are two things here. You do your duty, which results in results. Duty results in, or duty causes results, right? You must be attached to this. And here to this one must not be attached. That is the message. This was A, or must be attached. Let me just check. Act without detachment, I called A. So this was A, and this was B. Must not be attached to results, but you must be attached to doing your duty. Because one can think, Lord Krishna is saying, don't be attached to result. Then one can think, okay, if the result I'm not going to get, or I shouldn't care about the result, why care about the work itself? No, Lord Krishna is banning that. He's saying, no, you must do your duty. You must do your work with full commitment, with full dedication, but you must not consider yourself rightful owner of the results. If the results come, fine. You may, right now, I will say you may enjoy them. Consider it like a privilege. Consider it like a bonus, but you are not entitled to it. So again, I'm going a little bit deeper into this verse because this is such an important verse. These two, A and D, over here, you have the right to do your duty. Karmanyeva adhikarah te. Te, you have the adhikara to karmanya eva. Certainly, you have the right to do your duty. That is A. And D is saying, Mate sangostva akarmani, never not be attached to akarma, which means always be attached to doing your duty. So both of these are pointing to act with attachment to duty. So these both are talking about number B here, this B over here. You're following? Oops, what is that? This B and this B. And act without attachment to results. I will just change the color here. These two, B and C, never be attached to phala. Ma phaleshu kadachana, never have adhikar on your phala. And ma karmana phalahe tu bhu, you are not the cause of the phala. This is talking about A, which is A over here. So the B and C parts of the verse out of the 4 parts, A, B, C, D, small a, B, C, D, B and C are talking about acting without attachment to results. And A and D, small a and D, the first quartlet and the last quartlet of this verse are talking about you must be attached to doing the duty, but not to the output of the duty, which is the result. Okay. And why this is so, it will become very clear in the next couple of verses. And specifically, it will become clear in verse number 50, which is the third verse in this core concept of Nishkama Karma Yoga. I'm looking at my notes and seeing that. So, okay, I'll give permission to unmute now. Hopefully it will all work. So anybody has any, please, if you have any questions, start posting them on the chat, or you can raise your hands, etc.
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
If we are not attached to the result and if we are not sure about our result, why would we do our duty then?
Yes. So that's exactly the question I mentioned, that Lord Krishna is saying, don't think in that way. Because, and the answer, so let me give that answer right now. And before asking a question impromptu, try to raise your hand just to be fair to everybody else. There are 2 more questions on the chat, which I will cover shortly. So please raise your hands before asking questions, just as a courtesy. Okay. So the question is, why should we at all do our duty if we don't care about the results? So the answer is, if we are not, so in other words, the question is that if we don't get this, why should we do this at all? And this comes to the other part of today's discussion. What is true happiness? That is the key to answering this question. What is true happiness? We think true happiness is in the results. That's what we think. The results are the happiness. That I assert, and I might sound a little harsh here. Okay. That is because we have not tasted, we have gotten accustomed to some low level results or low level sweets called results. Those, go ask those who are doing their duty with full dedication. The joy that they get, the true happiness that they get in doing the duty or doing the work is far more than the joy that they get out of the results. Go ask them, find somebody like that and ask them. I was listening to a talk by Ustad Zakir Hussain. He is this tabla maestro. And he was quoting Pandit Ravi Shankar, who is a sitar maestro. I'm taking music as an example. He was saying that when I'm performing in front of an audience, I'm conscious about the audience. And I usually have to work much hard or control my mind, and I'm more stressed about my playing or about my performance or my, doing the tabla or sitar or whatever they are, the instrument, the musical instrument they are playing. And their internal happiness is impacted. They are not as happy when they are in front of an audience, because the mindset even there is result. Oh, what will they think? I am such a great player. I should not commit a mistake. Otherwise, they will think I'm not a good musician or whatever. But when I am sitting alone in my room and doing my sadhana, 8 hours, 10 hours continuously, they will play tabla or sitar. They say that 8 hours goes like 8 seconds. I don't even realize how those 8 hours passed, because I'm so absorbed in my sadhana of music. In my happiness is 10, 100 or some huge times more than when I'm in front of an audience, because in front of the audience, I'm caring about the result. Here, there is nobody to watch me. So you are forcibly, not forcibly, but just by the circumstance, there is no result to be obtained. But the true happiness that they get is then. And he said, I would much rather do this, because the joy that I get is far more than when I'm doing a public performance. But that realization you can only get when you are at that level. Our 99% of the people, 99% of the life is just running behind results. There is no even experience of this level of doing your work or something that you just like, something that you just enjoy so very much, that you get so absorbed in it that your joy is unlimited. That is what I mean by true happiness. Now, by the way, this is also not the highest understanding. This is the understanding at the level of Nishkama Karma Yoga. When I'm comparing it with Sakama Karma Yoga, there is Sakama there, or simply Karma Kanda. Okay, I will get some material benefit. People will clap. Zakir Hussain probably doesn't care about money that much now. Earlier, he may care when he was trying to build money. But after that, he cares more about his name, fame. So people will clap. There will be a big newspaper headline, this, that, all that. Great tabla maestro. So there is all about results. And I have seen this personally in my own life. Not now, again, I won't speak about myself, but my children, for example, they also do some music. And sometimes they do, this thing in the temple, or, sing kirtan in the temple. But when they are sometimes I have seen when they are at home and, both of them doing the kirtan, just when nobody is looking, they're just completely absorbed. Much more, I would say, absorbed than when others are looking. So that forcibly that situation is coming, that it is nishkama, because no one is looking, you get so absorbed and you get the happiness. If you can do that all the time, even if others are looking, that is nishkama karma yoga. That mindset of result is not even there, even if the circumstances were to be like that. That is called Nishkama Karma Yoga, where you really don't care about the result, not when the situation is forcing it. So in Zakir Hussain's example, even if when you are on the stage, you do that, that is when you get real happiness all the time. But then the mindset completely changes. Oh, as the saying goes, sabse bada rog kya kahenge log. Always caring about what others will say. That is phal. Always worrying about phal. But if we can disassociate all the time from the phal, then we can get the happiness. And this is a very good example to demonstrate this aspect. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. Why do it? If you want to get that happiness, but we are so driven to always result orientedness. We are always like hardworking donkeys. In the 7th chapter, Lord Krishna will talk about this concept of mudha or naradhama, always just working hard like a donkey so that we get 2 scraps of meal. And we have no even sense of what it is to do something for the pure joy of doing it. And once you get that taste, then you will realize how much happier it is to just do something for the sheer joy of doing it than for the joy of the phala or the result that will come from it. The phala becomes tasteless compared to that joy, but you must first find that joy. You must first find that. Since we don't even have any experience of it, or don't even have any, we have not built that attachment to the work itself, we think, okay, if there is no result, why do the work? It's a very natural question. So you must realize you may not be at that level today, but at least you can get the concept that others are at that level, so it is possible. And that is what Bhagavad Gita is talking about. I hope that answered that part of the question. So it's a little bit of a harsh answer. We may realize, oh my God, so I'm not even at that level yet to experience that. Maybe that is, but try to find something.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Let me see. There are a couple of other questions on the chat. So I will take the ones that are a little bit relevant to this conversation. The rest I will take either in the Q&A hour, or I will take it at a later time. Okay, there is one hand raised. Maybe if I'll come to that later. So how can Buddhi Yoga help a person achieve Bhakti Yoga in case due to mental health issues? So, okay, that's a nice question. Due to mental health issues, somebody is saying, how can one use Buddhi Yoga to achieve Bhakti Yoga? The answer is in verse number 10.10. You don't need any buddhi to do bhakti. Bhakti can be done even by an idiot. Even a person, now I don't know what are the mental health issues and if it's like very severe mental health issues or whatever, but I cannot comment on that. But all I'm trying to say is a person can do bhakti without any qualifications of intelligence or buddhi or any requirements. Simple bhakti, if one does, from bhakti, Krishna gives the intelligence. It's not this way that first you must have intelligence and then you can do bhakti. This is wrong. You simply do bhakti, Krishna gives intelligence. Sincerely you do bhakti, Krishna will remove all the barriers and impediments, mental health issues. Everything Krishna will remove. To the extent that you can do bhakti more nicely. Not so that you can become intelligent and cheat others. Not like that. And once you are doing bhakti, all those propensities will anyway go away. So in 10.10, Lord Krishna says, Dadami buddhi yogam tam. I give intelligence to these people. And to what kind of people? How does 10.10 start? Need to look. Tesham satata yuktanam. To these people, Tesham satata yuktanam, who are always engaged in bhakti, dadami buddhi yogam tam. I give them the intelligence. So all you have to do is bhakti. Leave the giving of intelligence part to Krishna. So that is the answer to that question. Yeah, next question is kind of nice. If an employee keeps on doing the duty and the boss keeps on getting all the credit and doesn't care about the employee, should the employee keep doing his duty or discontinue? So, see, very nice question. And this was actually part of my discussion that I was going to have. And usually 90% somebody else asks this question. So thank you for asking that question. The FAQ, frequently asked question. When you are saying that you are not entitled to the result, The intention is not that how can I get the result even though I'm not entitled. It's like saying the bonus, like in a company, if you get bonus, bonus means bonus. It's like an icing on the cake. That's the meaning of the real meaning of the word bonus is it's a privilege. You may get it, you may not get it, you cannot claim it. You can say salary क्यों नहीं मिला? Salary तो मिलना चाहिए. You can never say bonus क्यों नहीं मिला? Why did I not get the bonus? Arey, company did not do well, so this year no bonus. It happens, right? That is bonus. May happen, may not happen. So all our results, we should consider it as a bonus, whether it comes or it doesn't come. The motivation for the work should not be the result. But if it comes, okay, you can do whatever you want. Now, this is at a spiritual level, at a nishkama, so that you can do your best work. It is the intention is to make you to focus on the work so that you can get that kind of level of happiness, to free you from the result. If the boss is taking away the result, that is a totally different matter, not covered by 2.47 at all. So the question is, what should the employee do? The Nishkama Karma Yoga is not going to answer that question. What should the employee do if some anyaya or injustice is happening? And yes, TME is the right answer. Is absolutely the right answer. If you think some injustice is happening, let's disconnect these two topics of not getting the result, but the boss is taking away the result. In this 2.47 Karmanyevadhikaraste, there is no other person involved here. It's all between you and the result. That is the only focus of this verse. There is nobody else in this verse. That if the result is getting produced, who has the claim on it? That's not the intention of the verse. The only intention of the verse is you do not have claim on the result. Whoever has the rightful claim, ultimately Krishna has the rightful claim, and he can give the result to whoever deserves it due to his past activities or whatever. That is beyond the scope of the discussion of Karmanyevadhikaraste. All right. So the focus of the verse is you do not have a claim on the result. Now, whether some anyaya or injustice is happening, that is a different topic. So let's not mix these two topics. And yes, the solution to the other topic of injustice, of people taking advantage of you, a very good answer to that is TME, tolerate, mitigate, immigrate. And each goes in sort of a higher principle. Toleration, you can do as you must try to do as long as possible. Try the toleration to the fullest. And in some cases, the person who is, fully detached from the result to that extent will not even care about where the result goes or whoever else comes and eats it. He will not even care because he's not even working for the result. The joy is his. The joy of doing the work is his. Like Zakir Hussain, let's say, I'm just giving an example. I really don't know him. I don't know I just know what he said. So I'm not advocating Zakir Hussain. I'm not saying that he truly worked for Nishkama Karma Yoga with that consciousness. I have no idea. I'm just using him as a potential example based on what I heard. Okay, so just a disclaimer. If he is, let's say he's getting so much happiness just out of doing his musical play, and he's supposed to get 10 lakh rupees for his performance, and the person doesn't give him, whoever is the producer or who organized the whole performance, he gobbles it up. Maybe he will think, forget it, I got such a great joy in just singing or just playing the tabla. That was my joy, which is worth crores of rupees. Who cares about this little petty thing? He may think like that. One may think like that is what I'm saying. If you are at a very, very advanced level of Nishkama Karma Yoga, you won't even care. Now, many people are not at that level. I agree. But these are the highest levels of Nishkama Karma Yoga. And this is why Nishkama Karma Yoga is so hard for Kali Yoga. Imagine, can one ever be at that level? It's very hard. You all must be thinking, oh my God, what is this boy or this man talking about? How to give up all, not care about working so hard and completely letting others take advantage, or not enjoying even little bit of the result? He must be a mad person to say like this. It is so hard. Yes, you are right, it is hard. And that is why Bhakti Yoga is recommended in Kali Yoga. In Sat Yoga, Nishkama Karma Yoga is very easy because nobody does anything for the sake of results. The results don't even matter. These days in Kali Yoga, the whole structure is such that only results matter. And it is extremely unimaginable for a person to exist who is at such a high level that he does not at all care of the results, even to the extent when others are taking advantage of him. And that is why it is so hard to do Nishkama Karma Yoga or the other processes of yoga in Kali Yoga. Except for Bhakti Yoga, where we will see how that one is so easy. Okay, so that's where Bhagavad Gita is going. That's where we are building up. Okay, so next question. So we will deal with the questions on the chat, and then we will move on to, so this is our Q&A time. Okay, so later questions that come will be dealt with later. So this is our Q&A time, just saying. So we notice somebody is asking, bad things happening to good people. Does this demotivate people not to do the right duty? I think I have answered that question. Okay. We can always focus on the results. And whenever anything goes not according to our plan, or we see other people suffering because things did not go according to their plan, we can think, oh, why do the work? I think I have already answered that. As long as your consciousness is completely focused on results, yes, it will cause demotivation. But if the joy is simply in doing the work, nobody can take it away from you. Who can take it away? If in our Zakir Hussain example, if he did a 3-hour stage performance and he just got the joy out of that, and he did not get even a single rupee out of the, his fees, can anybody take away the joy of his performance that he got? Nobody can take that away. That is definitely his. That is 47D. Mate sangvostva akarmani. Never be attached to not doing your duty, which means be attached to doing your duty, because that gives happiness that can never be taken away. Can anybody take it away? No. People can take away the result. Oh, we collected 10 lakh rupees from the tickets. We will not give you even a single rupee. They may cheat him. He will say, no problem. I got the joy that I had to get. You can keep the results with you. Okay. So this is nothing about, people cheating anybody. How do we, next question, which is not on everyone's chat. So I will just post it here. I have not read it, but let me just put it here. How do we motivate students to constantly study to their optimum when, despite putting in efforts, they at times don't get the results that they are capable of getting based on their potential and optimal efforts? How can we take them away from the results and keep working hard? So I think I have answered this question also. I think, see, you must focus on the concepts. You must focus on the concept. All of you are asking the same question in different ways. If the student, now again, I can answer specifically this question, which I will answer later. But if we are to apply Nishkama Karma Yoga to this student, if the student has real joy in studying itself, then there is no need to motivate based on results. Oh, if you study hard, you will get the result. That motivation itself does not exist for such a student, because the study part is just so inherent. Like some great scientists, they just want to study or whatever, and I know some students like that. In my own life, I know some students who are just, when I ask those such students, what do you do when you are sad or when you are feeling low? One of the students says, I take a really hard math problem and I try to solve it. That is what that student does when he is feeling low or sad or whatever, because solving a math problem just gives immense joy to that student. I know personally some students like that. And these are students who are at the peak in the world, at the world level. They are at the peak of mathematics, and have achieved wonders. And no results can motivate them. No results motivate them. Sometimes they're just, when they have some other things, other important things to do, and they are doing math. Saying, why the hell are you doing math? You should be doing history. No, I was feeling very sad and I just wanted a break. So I'm doing this hard math problem. So there are students like that. So that is what this Nishkama Karma Yoga is talking about. Now let us come to this question. How to motivate students to study constantly to their optimum when they don't, and some of these students that I'm talking about here did not at times get the results they wanted. They failed also. And I would ask them, so how do you feel? Say, I don't care. I just did it for the sake of doing it. Literally, this is what they said. I don't care. And they continue to do it. It's not like after a few failures, they get disappointed and they leave. No, because they enjoy that. Now, it's very hard to find such students. I'm talking about some, probably, very handful of few students in the whole world. One among million, probably. So that is the level what this verse is talking about. This is not talking about the 99% mass. This is talking about the 1%. But you can find what you enjoy in your life. Try to find it. Not everybody has to be a musician or a mathematician. The application of this verse is find what you enjoy. There must be something that you enjoy. Some people just enjoy gardening. Some people enjoy, doing some crochet or, knitting or something. They get a lot of joy in that. Find what you enjoy, and you will see how much true happiness you get from that than from these petty results. These results will become so petty. The joy from the results will be trumped by the joy of doing things that you love doing. That is the essence. So how to make students put in more effort? Well, end of the day, the teaching of Bhagavad Gita is to become a good devotee of God. So ask the students we must not try to drive the students to do something that we want them to do. Ask them to find out what they enjoy and try to motivate and inspire them to follow what they enjoy doing. Something meaningful. You cannot say, I just enjoy, playing video games all day. Maybe that also is, or eating ice cream all day. But, you know, I see this having lived in America for almost 18 years now or 17 years. This thing is little bit more, this concept is more matured here. If a student is interested in sports, it's a good thing to encourage them in that direction. In India, more or less, it's like, okay, engineer or doctor, that's it. Everything else is useless, complete useless, failure. If you're not an engineer or a doctor, you're a failure. That should not be the case. Absolutely, it should not be. Let people, but again, you know, yes, if you're a musician, if you're a painter, artist, maybe you will earn less in money in your life. Maybe true, engineers may earn more, doctor may earn more. But again, our whole focus is money. So yes, we have to choose wisely as to what you inspire the students towards. So
I want to share something.
Okay, go ahead. Yes.
There was one student in my subject, data structures,
Hmm.
and he was getting very low marks. I asked him, what are you doing? What is your aim? And he said, I'm focusing on economics. And I saw that every time he was doing puzzles or he was studying economics books. I said, if you're satisfied, you're enjoying that, go ahead. Just I wanted to make it clear that what you're doing, why you're not getting marks. So very rarely we get such students who are very clear.
Yes. It's very rare to have found what you love. So you must find what you love and pursue that. There's a very nice speech that was given by Steve Jobs. It's probably his most famous speech. It was a 2005 address that he gave, a convocation address at Stanford University. And it's extremely motivating. And he gives 3 messages in that. One of those messages is find what you love and pursue that. Don't live other people's life. Don't follow other people's passion, other people's dogma. Find what you love and pursue that. That is why he said, I dropped out of Reed College, which is right here in Portland, Oregon. And then he started sitting in classes for free in areas where he liked. And he said, I loved calligraphy, the art of writing letters in different fonts. And he said years later, he applied that knowledge in the Macintosh computer, and that's how fonts came about. Otherwise, all the fonts were of fixed font, what is known as fixed width font. This whole calligraphy, he said he came because he gave up living somebody else's life and lived his own life. So anyway, I think we've had enough discussion on this topic. Let's move forward. Otherwise, we'll be guilty of covering only one verse today. So,
Sir, I would like to share my experience.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. 3 years back, it happened with me that I was normally I am a very slogging person and I work very hard, and I worked very hard 1.5 to 2 years, and after that I got the result of that work as a double promotion in my job, which nobody can get it, and I was very happy. But within 10 days, some dirty politics played by my colleagues, they snatched away everything, and the totally reverse happened. At that time, I did feel bad. I did not go and fight with anybody because I know I cannot do under these circumstances but to keep quiet. I had to accept the situation. I came back, though I was not very happy. But once I came back, I started realizing that slowly I gained a lot of confidence due to that particular event. I may not have got the double promotion, but that fact that they recognized my qualities and I was given that and everyone appreciated it gave me so much confidence that helped me in succeeding in life. After 3 years, today now, people do praise me, but that doesn't, even those praise makes me happy, but that I know that I have the quality, so I don't expect others. Now I have come to a situation that even if I did not get, that is because of my karma or whatever it is, God did not want me to give because that was not good for me at that particular point of time. If I had got, something bad would have happened to me, because that is the only way that I could come terms to with that. Not that I was very happy with the situation, but
So you applied
today,
tolerance.
I try, that is what I'm trying to tell you. Today, after listening to your Bhagavad Gita classes, I have come to the conclusion, because after that I was put in to work with an officer who used to daily torture me, saying that I will spoil this, I will spoil that. So now I understand that I tolerated this because I know that I cannot do anything. I had to accept the situation and I tolerated it. But the result is today, after 3 years, I am quite happy because I know that whatever I did was right. People were wrong and I don't have to bother about anything. I am the internal happiness is there, but somewhere still I'm a human being. Somewhere it is still there that what I should have got, I never got. But
Yes.
even that thing should go, but that doesn't go that easily. But
Yes.
I do have the true happiness today that
Nobody can
I
take
don't
away
feel
from
like
you.
giving up on my duty today. I want to do good to others. That is how I have become. But that all I come to know only through your Gita, the TME.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks
That
a
is-
lot.
Thank you. That happiness of doing the work, nobody can take away from you. Nobody. People can take away the result and then you can apply tolerance. But the happiness that you get from just doing the work that you love to do, nobody can ever take it away from anyone, from the person who did it. And that is a great segue now into 2.48. Okay, so 2.48 says, Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhi asiddhayo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. So what it say? Yogastha kuru karmani. Yogastha kuru karmani, which means do your work with the consciousness of yoga. And here that yoga, so I will describe this 2.48 also as A, B, C, D. In the consciousness, I'm not focusing on the spelling, okay? Consciousness, whatever. Consciousness of yoga. And this yoga means Nishkama Karma Yoga. In that consciousness, do your work. Yogastha, being situated in consciousness, do your work. Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya, without getting attachment. Sangam means attachment to, or sangam means attachments, giving up, tyaktva, giving up the attachments to the results. So in a detached state, do your duty. So remain, and then the third verse is saying, Siddha asiddhayo samo bhutva. Sama means equipoised. Remain equipoised in siddhi and asiddhi. Siddhi means success in this context, and asiddhi means failure. So do not get disturbed by success or failure. And this message of not getting disturbed by success or failure, here comes tolerance. And even higher principle than tolerance is enjoying the work, because that nobody can take away anyway. And when you don't care about the result, how can anybody upset you? How can somebody take away something from you which you don't even care about? Don't they say that if I don't have any expectations, nobody can make me upset? Upsets happen only when we have expectations. When you don't even expect the result, or you don't care for the result, or you did not do the work for the result, then whether the result is success or failure doesn't affect you. Siddhi asiddhayo samo bhutva. One remains sama, equipoised. So this is equipoised in success or failure. This equanimity, samatvam yoga uchyate. This is called yoga. This is yoga. This equanimity is yoga. What was number B? Sangam tyaktva, detachment from results. So do your duty in the consciousness of Nishkama Karma Yoga. Detach yourself from the results. Remain equipoised. in success or failure, this is yoga. And this yoga, again, I will mention, is Nishkama Karma Yoga. This word yoga is going to appear at many places in this chapter or in this in this whole section. So we must understand that wherever the word yoga is coming, it is talking about Nishkama Karma Yoga. Next verse, 2.49. Durena hyavaram karma buddhi yoga dhananjaya buddhau sharanam anvichha kripanah phalhetavaha. Again, the word hetava, hetu is coming. So let us see this verse. A, B, C, and D. Durena hi avaram karma. So durena, dur jao. We say dur means far away. So stay dur, far away. From what? Avaram karma. Avaram karma means sinful activity. Avaram karma. Any activity that is sinful, Srila Prabhupada is translating it as abominable or sinful activity. Act buddhi yogo dhananjaya. Act by your, or by, I would say, applying your buddhi or intelligence. This is buddhi yoga. Buddhi yoga dhananjaya. Act by applying your intelligence. I will explain that a little bit. The third one is buddhau sharanam anvichha. Anvichha means to, anvichha is the root is ichha or desire or try. So try to take shelter. Sharan. Buddhau sharanam. So shelter of your intelligence. And otherwise, kripana phala hetavaha. If you are doing your work for phala hetu karya kar rahe ho, to kripana kehlaoge. Phala hetu means for the fruits if you are doing your work. Otherwise, if you work for the fruits or for the results, I will say, you are a miser. Miser matlab kanjus, isn't it? Kripana, miser, kanjus. In Hindi we call kanjus. Okay, this is very important verse, and a lot of concepts we have already discussed through the beautiful Q&A that we had. Okay. So what is the meaning of, there are several important concepts in this verse. So durena hi avaram karma. First of all, stay away from bad activities. In essence, act by applying your intelligence. So I will use this. Act by applying your intelligence. What is intelligence? So let us focus on that a little bit. What is intelligence? Let us compare it with mind. Intelligence versus mind. Mind is the one that desires. I want this, I want that. Man chal raha hai, we say. Mind is man. Okay, man. This word man is used so many places in Bhagavad Gita. It is the mind which has desires, ichha. मेरा मन कर रहा है कि बहुत जरा रसगुल्ला खाने का मन कर रहा है, गुलाब जामुन खाने का मन कर रहा है. So man can go many places. I want this, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. That the job of the mind is to have desires. Intelligence is the one that plans, evaluates the pros and cons. How much happiness will I get? Etc., etc. It plans, it evaluates the pros and cons. If a diabetic person, his sugar is, I don't know, 300, 400, man kar raha hai gulab jamun khane ka, but his intelligence will say, my friend, if you take one more gulab jamun, you might die. That is intelligence speaking. Okay. So mind can say so many things. Your friend, you go to the house of your friend and you see 10,000 rupees. Mind says, you know what? Can I put it in my pocket? Chori kar lo. Intelligence says, no. I read Bhagavad Gita. I will get karma, bad karma. Durdena hi avanam karma. I must stay far from sinful acts. So you must not do it. That is intelligence speaking. So intelligence, when Lord Krishna is saying, Durena hi avaram karma. First of all, don't do bad activities. Apply your intelligence. Don't just always listen to your mind. Because mind, over many, many lifetimes, has been programmed. It has been programmed to do sinful activities. Programmed. Sinful activities and working for results. Working for results. It has been programmed for that. And that is where intelligence comes in. Intelligence is the thing that forces the mind or forces us to do something different than what we have been doing so far. That is intelligence. Like the student, he wants to enjoy, he wants to play cricket, football and all that. But intelligence tells him, no, exams are coming. You must stop playing cricket, which was what you have been doing the whole semester. Now you must stop and study because otherwise you will fail. Intelligence tells, and it causes a change in action. So using our intelligence, Buddhi Yoga Dhananjaya, Buddhi Yogo Dhananjaya. And then I have to explain few other concepts, but let's keep going. Buddho Sharanam Anvicha. Take the shelter of Buddhi. Lord Krishna is saying, and by the way, the first time the word Sharana is coming here in Bhagavad Gita. This concept of Sharana will be greatly expanded later in Bhagavad Gita, what Sharan means. And finally, it will be expanded in the last verse of Bhagavad Gita, or the most important last verse, where Lord Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Maam Ekam Sharanam Raja. Come to my Sharana. That is the highest understanding of Sharana. 18.66. Maam Ekam Sharanam Raja. Just come to my shelter. Right now is a lower level of understanding according to Nishkama Karma Yoga, where Lord Krishna is not saying, come to my shelter, Maam Ekam Sharanam. Here, Lord Krishna is saying, Buddhau Sharanam Anvicha. Go to the shelter of your intelligence, not the shelter of your desires. Kripana Phala Hetavaha. That is another very, very important point. Kripana Phala Hetavaha, which means that if you are interested in phala or results, if this is your interest, then you are a miser. Why is that? Because you are giving up a higher joy. You are trading it. कहते हैं ना, what do you say? You are selling yourself cheap because you are taking the pleasure of short-term, immediate, but very, very temporary and very small results. Minuscule results because you have never tasted a higher result. And that's what is a miser. Miser किसे कहते हैं? कंजूस को. कि he's trying to save his little money, but if he gives it up, he can get better joy. Like a conjuice person, he doesn't help other people, let us say. But if he helps other people, he could get so much joy from it. But he's so conjuice, he's saying, no, I'll keep my 100 rupees with me. That's called conjuice. Kripana. So one is miserly if one doesn't even try to go to a higher level of this higher taste, or this level where one gets this true joy and one is trading it off for the peanuts. And that is kripana, because you are focusing on the phala, not on the, so you are focusing on the joy of phala. He is a miser. But if you focus on the joy of your work, then you are intelligent. Okay. So one should find what one loves to do and do that. And the amount of joy in that is infinitely more than doing something for the sake of some petty results. And those results will be very temporary, very small, etc. Very tiny results. And you get those results and you think that this is all that there is to live. There is nothing more than this. इसके अलावा कुछ नहीं है. इतना मिल गया बहुत है. So that is a miserly way of thinking. One is not thinking higher. Okay. So another point that I want to bring up, totally different point here. In 2.49, Srila Prabhupada, if you see the translation, this is one of the times where the term Buddhi Yoga is coming. Buddhi Yoga Dhananjaya in 2.49b. And Srila Prabhupada is translating it as devotional service. And also as Krishna consciousness. I think I have explained this before. So far, what I have explained Buddhi Yoga as acting by utilizing our intelligence. That is the literal meaning. This is the literal meaning. Isn't it? Acting by utilizing our intelligence is Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yoga. This is the literal meaning, but Srila Prabhupada is translating it as devotional service or Krishna consciousness. Why is that? That is because the real understanding of Buddhi Yoga, as Lord Krishna will explain in the 10th chapter, and later on in the Bhakti Yoga chapters, he will say that the most intelligent thing to do is Bhakti Yoga. Because any other process of yoga, you will realize, is very hard. Arjun says that himself. In 6.33 and 34, Arjuna says all these processes that you have described are so hard. Arjuna is saying for him, nothing is hard. He says, I can control the wind. Vayureva cha dushkaram. I can control the wind. He has weapons which can control the wind. Today in science, there are no weapons that can control the wind. If one hurricane or tornado comes, people run under into the basement here in the United States. So they cannot control the wind even. Maybe after 500 years, some kind of things will be built by which you can, control the tornadoes and this and that. Today, it doesn't exist. Arjuna had weapons to control the wind, but he says, I cannot control the mind. So controlling the mind is so much harder even for Arjuna. What to speak about ourselves? Okay. So that is why Srila Prabhupada is saying that the best form of yoga by using your intelligence is bhakti or devotional service or Krishna consciousness. That is intelligence, isn't it? Like you are a little guy, like you must have seen on the street, a family I saw a man, he had 2 dogs. One was a German Shepherd, big dog. And he also had a little dog, very small. I don't know the species, but very small, tiny dog. And this person used to take both of them out in the evening. The German Shepherd, the big dog, would just walk quietly. The little one would bark on all the other dogs because he knows that the big dog is there to protect me. So he can, be the king. He's intelligent because he knows he has the protection of the big one. So he can boss around. That is Bhakti Yoga. Again, not in terms of bossing around, but we cannot control our mind on our own. That little dog, if the German Shepherd is not there, he will walk very quietly. He knows now there is nobody to protect me. I better walk very quietly. Otherwise, these other dogs will eat me. So Bhakti Yoga is realizing I cannot do it on my own. Therefore, by applying my intelligence, same that little dog is applying, he also has intelligence. That when I am with the big dog, I don't have to fear. So similarly, when we realize that our intelligence is not enough, or our Shakti, our ability to control our mind is not enough, let me depend on God, who is the biggest, most powerful, then we can be happy. That is intelligence. That is bhakti. Therefore, Bhakti Yoga is no different than Buddhi Yoga. But that understanding is coming later in Bhagavad Gita. So the question is, why is Srila Prabhupada giving that understanding in the 2nd chapter itself? Why cannot he just wait for that understanding to unfold itself later on? And the answer is because Srila Prabhupada is very eager, very anxious to give that final understanding in the beginning. Lord Krishna had a very sincere student like Arjuna. Today in Kali Yuga, there are not many sincere students. And many people, when they start reading Bhagavad Gita in a more practical sense, they fall off. You can see in our class itself, we started with about 200 people. Now there are about 75 people. Many people drop off. So Srila Prabhupada wants to give the understanding that even if you have read till 2nd chapter, you should get some idea about the later content, which is the most important content. So Srila Prabhupada is giving an overall integrated understanding of Bhagavad Gita right in the beginning. He doesn't care that somebody will criticize him. Oh, you did not give a literal meaning. He doesn't care. His caring is to make people understand the essence of Bhagavad Gita, not to get a lot of praise or a lot of fame that, oh, his translations are very literal. His goal of writing this Bhagavad Gita was not to win the Pulitzer Prize. No. Or the Nobel Prize in Literature. No. His goal of writing this Bhagavad Gita was to bring people closer to Krishna. That is his goal. He is aiming for higher prize than Nobel Prize, which is Krishna Prema, the love of Krishna. So that is his goal, and that is why he is giving that later understanding earlier itself. So he is translating Buddhi Yoga as devotional service, because if we apply our Buddhi like that small dog, we will come to the conclusion that by taking Sharana of the big person, the big supreme person, Krishna, we can be happy. Why apply our own hard work? Because anyway, we are going to fail if we do that. So that is another point I wanted to convey as to why Srila Prabhupada is translating Buddhi Yoga as devotional service or Krishna consciousness. Okay, so we covered 2.49. Buddha Sharanam Anvicha Kripana Phala Hetavaha. So they are miserly. Now we will cover 2.50. So this is the next section. So we told, so let me rub this off. 47 to 49 are the core concepts of Nishkama Karma Yoga. 50 to 53 are the benefits of Nishkama Karma Yoga. So what are the benefits? Because this inspires us to perform Nishkama Karma Yoga at this level, what Krishna is describing. So 2.50 now. 2.50, what Krishna is saying, Buddhi yukto jihatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmat yogaya yujyasva yoga karmashu kaushalam. So what is Krishna saying here? Again, A, B, C, D. That Buddhi yukto jihatiha. Jihati means you can get rid of. So by applying Buddhi Yoga, again Buddhi Yukta or Buddhi Yoga is coming here. By applying Nishkama Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, you can get rid, Jihati. Jihati means to get rid of something. You can get rid of what? I will just write it here. Can get rid of Sukrita Dushkrita. Sukrita Dushkrita means good and bad reactions of your work. You can get rid of that. That means whatever the reactions come, which means the results that come, reactions or results, whether they are useful results or non-useful, good results or bad results, you will not be entangled by that. By doing Nishkama Karma Yoga, you will not be attached to the results. Tasmad Yogaya Yujyasva. Therefore, you must do your duty in Nishkama Karma Yoga, or rather, you will say, therefore, for do Nishkama Karma Yoga. I will just summarize, put it that way, NKY. And here comes the punchline. Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. Do the work in Kaushala. Kaushala means like an art, in sort of in the zone. Do your, I will just write it here. Do your work for the sheer joy of it. This is what we have been discussing for much of the class. And I said that understanding will be revealed in 2.50 when I answered the previous question. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. That this kind of work, when you do without worrying about the result, just the joy of the work, that joy is unsurpassable. That joy, Lord Krishna is saying, is what you should aim for. Do your work for the sheer joy of doing your work, not for the result. So that is, we said now we are talking about the benefits. So the benefit is you get rid of good and bad reactions. That is the benefit. And the other benefit is you get sheer joy. So this is benefit number 1. And the benefit number 2 is that you get sheer joy or true happiness, what I had said earlier. This happiness is far greater than the happiness of the results. So these are the 2 benefits in this verse. Next verse, 2.51. कर्मजः बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्म बंधन विनिर्मुक्ताः पदम गच्छन्ति अनामयम्. So again, A, B, C, D. Karmajam buddhiyuktahi, which means when you do your work in buddhiyuktahi, when you do, or I will say that, when you work with buddhi yoga, which in this context is nishkama karma yoga, then what happens? And when you do your work, phalam tyaktva manishinaha, when you do work without attachment, phalam tyaktva. Tyaktva means to be detached or give up. So without attachment to phala, then what happens? 2 things happen. This is benefit number 3 and benefit number 4. What are the benefits that happen? Janma bandhana vinirmukta, janma bandha vinirmukta, which means you get free from birth and death. Janma bandha vinirmukta, mukti mil jati hai from janma, which means from repeated birth and death. And padam gachanti anamayam, you go to a place where anamayam, you go to a anamayam place. Gachanti means to go. You go somewhere. Where do you go? A place called anamayam. What does anamayam mean? Where there is no misery. So you go to anamayam. So this is the concept of going somewhere. The concept that is being introduced, that you go somewhere. And later on, Lord Krishna will say that place is my, capital M-Y, my abode or my residence. And he will call this as Param Dham. This all understanding, the deepest understanding will come later chapters. But here he is simply introducing the concept that there is somewhere to go. This is not our permanent place. So these 2 concepts, and of course, Param Dham or my Lord's residence is this spiritual world. And you get free from birth and death. These are the other 2 benefits. Both of these are talking about liberation or mukti, or what many names are there: self-realization, liberation, mukti, moksha. So many names are there. So in the previous verse, 2.50, the benefit was to get freedom from the reactions or the phala and the sheer joy of doing the work. Now Krishna is going to a higher level in this verse where he's saying you will get liberated. Which is going to the spiritual world. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is giving a reference to a very, 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 very important verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is one of the very important verses from Srimad Bhagavatam that Srila Prabhupada is quoting in the purport, which is in the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse number 58. Very, very important verse. It reads like this: Samashrita ye pad pallava plavam mahat padam punya yasho murare bhavam bhudir vatsa padam param padam 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 yad vipadam natesham. What this verse is, I will explain very briefly. But this chapter 14 in Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, this entire chapter is being spoken by Brahmaji to Lord Krishna. And Brahmaji did some mischief towards Lord Krishna. And that I won't go into the story. Maybe we'll cover it sometime in our Srimad Bhagavatam series. But that story is called Brahma Vimohan Leela. Brahma Vimohan Leela, where Brahmaji wants to test if Lord Krishna is really the Supreme Lord or he's just a small boy. He gets a doubt in his mind. And then he realizes, oh my God, this is the Supreme Lord. And then he comes and offers his prayers. He asks for forgiveness from Lord Krishna for playing a trick on him or trying to test him. And these are beautiful prayers by Brahmaji to Lord Krishna. And one of the very important verses or shlokas in that prayer is this one: Samashritaye Pallava Padapallava Plavam Mahat Padam Punyesho Murare Bhavam Bhudir Vatsa Padam Pram Padam 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 Yad Vipadam Natesham. Lord Brahmaji is saying to Lord Krishna in summary here that this world is an ocean of misery. Padam Padam Yad Vipadam Natesham. Vipada कहते हैं ना, विपदा आ गई है. Vipada means some disaster or some troubles. Padam Padam, on every step there is vipada in this world. Brahmaji is saying, but by taking the shelter, samashrita, ashraya, the root is ashraya, which means taking shelter of the pada pallava plavam, of the feet of the lotus feet of, or the feet of the Lord. Yasho Murare, Murari. Who is Murari ji? Krishna. By taking shelter of the feet of Lord Krishna, one can cross the ocean, Bhavam Bhudir. This Mahat Padam, this Bhavam, this ocean, one can easily cross by sitting in the boat of the feet of the Lord, which means by taking the shelter of the Lord, one can very easily cross this Bhavam Bhudir, this big ocean of misery where at every step there is vipada. So that is real Buddhi Yoga, which is Bhakti. So Srila Prabhupada is giving a very nice example of how Buddhi Yoga is Bhakti. But coming back to this verse, number 51, Lord Krishna is saying, by doing Buddhi Yoga, when you do your work in Buddhi Yoga, without attachments to phala, you get liberation, free from birth and death, and you go to a place where there is no misery. Because this world is a place of padam padam yat vipadam natesham. This world is a place of misery. Every step there is vipada. Okay. Now, 52. So more benefits. Yada te moha kalilam buddhir vyatitarishyasi tada gantasi nirvedam shrotavasya shrutasya cha. So Lord Krishna is saying, when your yada te moha kalilam, when you have come out of this place, moha kalilam, when you have started, so A, B, C, D, once again, very quickly, I may not write everything because we are short on time. When your intelligence, moha kalilam, when you have come out of this moha kalilam, this whole illusion, moha means illusion. So when you have come out of moha kalilam or acting for results, that is the moha kalilam. When you are no longer mohit or attached to the results, and Your intelligence has surpassed that. Your intelligence is beyond thinking about results. Then what will happen? Tada gantasi nirvedam. Then you will become indifferent. Nirvedam means you will become indifferent to Shrotavasya Shrutasya cha. You will become indifferent to Vedas or Karma Kanda. So by performing Nishkama Karma Yoga, you will get the higher joy and you will be easily able to give up the lower joy performed or that you get by doing Karma Kanda from the Vedas. Last week we had covered what the Vedas are covering. They are covering 99% of the content of the Vedas is just Karma Kanda. You know what are the modern Vedas? You want to know what are the modern version of the Vedas? I will show you. There are thousands of Vedas on Amazon.com. Are you seeing this? So I was searching for this. And what is that? How to be successful. Let me just see. And you can see so many books, how to be successful. Even you can get a book for, how to date successfully. There are also Vedas which tell you how to attract the opposite gender successfully. There are procedures given for even having sensual pleasure successfully. All that is also there in the Vedas. And also how to be successful, power of now, this, how to be successful. These are all the modern Vedas. Think and grow rich, marketing skills, gears for business, better person, how to be everything, master your emotions, more energy, more money, super leader. These are the modern Vedas, how to be successful. So our Vedas basically are telling this, but in a much, much more advanced level. By reading these books, yes, you can become rich, you can become better leader, you can become this, you can become that, you can become that. But by performing the processes given in the Vedas, you can become so much rich that this richness is nothing. If you sincerely, if you very seriously and very nicely and accurately perform the prescriptions given in Vedas, one can become very powerful, one can become very rich, one can become very beautiful, one can have a long life free of disease. So many formulas are given in Vedas, but it is no different than these books. Now, would you call any of these books as something that is spiritual? No, they are all at a material level. How to get material success. Once you have become rich, you don't need to use this book. Then they reject the book. Oh, throw away the book. I have got what I wanted. That is what most people do with the Vedas. So, by performing Nishkama Karma Yoga, you become indifferent to the Vedas. Automatically, you lose the taste for the Vedas. And last verse, 2.53. Lord Krishna is expanding on that. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. Then you will get, Lord Krishna is saying, Samadhava achala buddhis tada yogam avapsyasi. So then, when you are no longer attracted by phala, because Vedas, 99% of the Vedas are talking about phala, how to become rich, how to become beautiful, how to become strong, how to become successful. All those are in the category of phala. When you are no longer caring for that, then you get samadhi. And samadhi is the state of liberation. And your buddhi becomes achala. Achala buddhi, which means it becomes calm and steady. Achala. The mind doesn't wander away. It stays fixed in trance. So when your mind is no longer disturbed by the Vedas are being here. Shruti is being the word Shruti. SHRUTI. The word Shruti is referring to the Vedas. Okay. So the benefits are, once again, of performing Nishkama Karma Yoga. That is what we covered in the last 4 verses, the benefits. The first benefit is getting rid of the phala, or the reactions or the results of the work. Getting sheer joy from doing the work itself. Third benefit is getting free from birth and death. And fourth benefit is going to the spiritual world. And these means one gets moksha or liberation. And then at that point, one is no longer attracted to doing work for the phala. Then one realizes that this phala is so meager, so tasteless. It is like peanuts. Who wants to do it for the phala? I just want to do it for the sheer joy of it and to get moksha. And then one goes into the state of liberation, or achala buddhi, or samadhi. So that is the whole sequence of these verses. So we covered from 2.47 to 2.53 today, which is the core of Nishkama Karma Yoga. And we also understood what is the meaning of true happiness. And true happiness is not in the results, but is the joy in the work itself. That is what we understood today. Okay, and we got a lot of questions also answered in the middle. And we will do more questions tomorrow in the Q&A hour. So please come there, and any of the questions that we didn't or could not take up today, we will take up either later class or in the Q&A hour. And if you cannot come to the Q&A hour, you can hear to the recording of the Q&A hour. Lot of good discussions happen in the Q&A. So I will stop here, and I will stay here if you want to ask any other questions that are more of a logistical nature, but any philosophical questions on Bhagavad Gita and all, I would like to make sure that you ask when others are present, so that it gets recorded, it gets posted, everybody is able to benefit. But if you have any personal, private, or any other kind of discussion which is not suitable for large group or public, then we can have it after I have stopped the recording and everybody has gone. So I will hang around here till everybody goes. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagwan Shri Krishna ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.